You're watching Capitol Connection from the Illinois State Capitol.
Welcome back. The Illinois Speaker of the House, Emanuel Chris Welch, is being sued by his own staff. Joining us now is Brady Burden with the Illinois Legislative Staffers Association. You're the acting president. Brady, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This was a drastic step, but one in a long line of action that the staffers have been trying to take now for well over a year. This is the second session you guys have been really fighting for a unionization effort. You're looking to be recognized as a union. Last year, we saw a lot of action when it came to the bill that passed out of the House that seemingly would have given you guys collective bargaining rights. And this is the partisan staff for the House Republicans and House Democrats. I wonder, this year we didn't hear a lot about a bill. We didn't see all the big hearings around a bill. What can you tell me about how this session was different as far as that recognition side compared to the previous one?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing to note is that we really don't need a bill, and we never have. The bill wasn't our initiative, and frankly, we weren't really consulted in any meaningful way throughout the filing and the passing of the bill in the House. We're more like, at some point we will need some sort of legislative framework, but it's not something that is needed to move forward at this juncture. As far as like the bill itself, it's stalled in the Senate. We've tried to reach out to President Harmon's office, and we've effectively been stonewalled. Multiple times we've reached out for a meeting or any sort of communication, and other than notice of receipt, we haven't really heard much back from them. We've tried to ask for the speakers to liaise with them for us, and we've been told that they're not going to lobby for us. So, the bill's dead, and that's fine.
You mentioned you don't believe you need a bill, and that was really a topic of conversation last session around this, because there is a law in the books that specifically exempts partisan staff, legislative staffers in this building, from being able to collectively bargain in the state's laws that allow people to collectively bargain. Now, this really started this momentum for the legislative staffers when the Workers' Rights Amendment passed, which said everybody in the state has a right to collectively bargain. We heard from a lot of legal experts that spoke at that hearing, a lot of the labor experts saying there was going to need to be some sort of court action here. Why do you feel it's necessary now to take this action? Because it doesn't just seem like this is as simple as just, okay, we're taking that legal step we needed to take. The lawsuit, the letter that you guys sent beforehand, this is really trying to force the Speaker's office's hand.
What I would say is that as far, like, the lawsuit was probably always going to happen, but we wanted to make it absolutely clear that this was basically our last option, right? We could have sued back in November of 2022, which is when this all started, but we didn't, right? We kept it quiet, we kept it under wraps for almost half a year. No leaks. Over 50 people knew at that time, and nobody leaked it to CapFacts, nobody leaked it on Twitter, and as you're probably aware, stuff gets leaked from House Democratic Caucus like moments after it's discussed in caucus. So we take this very seriously, and we were taking the uniqueness of our position very seriously. We didn't want to interfere with the people's work if at all possible. We didn't want to cause the Speaker any sort of political issues just because we were trying to exercise our rights. So throughout this process, we've basically been making sure that every box is checked. We've dotted our I's, we've crossed our T's. We filed with ILRB at the very vague advisement of the Speaker's former chief counsel, even though we knew that it wouldn't amount to anything. Then we attempted to have discussions with them after ILRB said that they didn't have jurisdiction. and nothing fruitful came from that, so we moved to the next step, which was announcing our presence. And then afterwards, we essentially said, okay, so we've announced our presence. We're going to get through session. We're not going to interfere with anything. We're going to make sure that we get a budget, and then we'll talk this summer. We reached out to the Speaker's office after session was over. Radio silence all the way through until Labor Day weekend, which we went public again. And an almost immediate result of that was the bill, House Bill 4148 being filed. We weren't consulted at all before the bill was filed. Like as far as the amendment, it was, there really wasn't any actual negotiation that took place. They took some of our stylistic edits, and that was basically it.
So from then to now, from this session, not only was the recognition not there for this, was there any effort to address any of the issues that the legislative staffers wanted to collectively bargain over? And I guess this is the better opportunity than any to kind of say, what are the big issues that you guys want a say in when in the office?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to note that even if we didn't have any issues at all, we still have a right to do this. And like, that's the main thing. Even if Speaker Welch was the best boss ever, and he treated all of us fantastically, we all got fantastic pay, benefits, he's not going to be here forever. He's made a point of saying that. So what about the next speaker? What is the guarantee that we at least have some floor to the treatment that we get? And the answer is, without a contract, there isn't. We're all at-will employees. We can be hired and fired essentially at will by the speaker. We're exempt from most of the other like rules and regulations that traditionally are applied to employees in Illinois for the state. So as far as what we want, pay is obviously something that everybody's interested in, but what we actually want is we want conditions that will allow for people to stay here as long as they want, rather than being forced out. Attrition and turnover in this office is it's an embarrassment, basically. You have units in the Speaker's office that are seeing 50% turnover during a single session, and that's not sustainable. It's not how you get good work done for the people of Illinois, and it's not how you serve your caucus. So basically, we feel that if we are at the table, we will be able to better represent the interests of the people who do want to stay here, so that way they can, rather than being forced out.
I wonder with that, because we just had the budget get passed. We had the routine. There's the everybody's on the House floor. There's all the thank yous for the staff. I believe in the House of Representatives, you were on the floor for that. I know that's not a new place for you in that particular moment. But when you talk about all the work that builds up to even just passing the budget, let alone all the other legislation that goes through this building in a spring, when you have that kind of turnover, how does that turnover make that more difficult to not only get the legislation to the point where it can be voted on, but just to continue moving through, make sure implementation's there and everything like that?
Well, it's important to consider the expertise and knowledge of the process has to come from somewhere, right? If it doesn't come from staff who work for the majority leaders, the minority leaders, it's going to come from elsewhere, whether that is special interest groups, whether that's the legislators themselves. But as we've seen recently, we're losing a lot of our more tenured legislators as well, unfortunately, although, wish those that are retiring luck, and I'm sure they are appreciating the well-deserved break. But what you're doing essentially is you're throwing the people of Illinois to the wolves. You are allowing the people who have the money to keep people here for as long as possible to run the show, essentially.
We've seen that. I mean, it's like you kind of said there. There are lawmakers that are stepping out. We've seen attempts at like revolving door legislation, stuff like that. And obviously that's more ethics bound. You know, that's all talking about the ethics of the lawmakers in the building. But there is that brain drain, I guess, in that, if you want to characterize it that way. Yeah. And that's just such an interesting behind the scenes part of it. Because when we talk about the jobs that exist here in the building, and you guys are advocating for better benefits, more of a reason to stay in those jobs.
More sustainable conditions would be how I would phrase it.
More sustainable conditions for those jobs. When people are leaving those jobs, where are they going? Are they going to, you know, maybe those special interest groups that are able to pay more? Are they going to other states? Where does that move happen for a lot of these workers that are leaving?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important to note that we're never going to be able to keep up with the private sector. That's just part of like how state government works. You kind of trade. It's a trade-off, right? In the private sector, you can get like really good salaries and all that kind of stuff, but when you work for the government, there's an understanding of like stability in your job and like decent benefits, although those have been decreasing in recent years.
And there's that passion side of it for working for the people that you've already kind of addressed. I mean, as somebody who works in journalism, I understand the passion side of that playing a role in this.
Yeah, and yeah, there's definitely a discount when it comes to salary and conditions. There's no way that people would put up with what they put up with to work here if they were working for if they were working for like ExxonMobil or something like that. You work here primarily because you want to help people, you want to do good, and you want to be a public servant. As far as where people end up going, often they're going to lobbying jobs. Sometimes they shuffle around within the legislature. Sometimes they go off to get graduate degrees or law degrees, and sometimes they go to work for the governor's office. Those are primarily the career paths that people take.
Got it. So looking forward to next steps now in this process. The lawsuit has been filed. We've seen, you know, legal battles like this. They can get drawn out. What does that look like as we go into a summer, as we go into, you know, potentially the fall with veto session, potentially the next spring session? If we start to look at a legal battle of that length, what does this look like for you guys, as, you know, especially as staff that we've already talked about has a decent amount of turnover?
Well, I think at this point we've established we're not going anywhere. As far as the timeline for the legal battle, so in traditionally in litigation, a lot of the movement, a lot of the resources and time is spent disputing facts. In this specific case, there's not really a whole lot of facts to dispute. Where the disagreement comes in is twofold. First, can the speaker recognize the union? And then second, can he be forced to recognize the union? We believe both of those are true, but it's a pretty straightforward case in that degree. So it should, there's only so much you can delay a simple case like this.
And as far as just the impact outside of just the Speaker's office in this case, I'm interested. I know in the bill itself that was filed, that again did not get passed, there was a sort of tie together of the House Democrat staff and the House Republican staff. And correct me if I'm wrong here, this did not include the Senate staffers in this, or are there Senate staffers that are in the actual the legislative staffers union, but not in that initial bill?
So the initial bill does in fact cover every legislative staffer. So if you work for the General Assembly or any of the agencies that do support and fall under the legislature's jurisdiction who are explicitly excluded from current labor law, you are in some way addressed in the bill. The way that they have drawn these bargaining units is interesting, to say the least.
And that's again in the bill that
in the bill that hasn't passed and likely will not pass. You are correct. For example, we are drawn in with House Democratic staff is drawn in with House Republican staff, and from a which is a rather unorthodox way of drawing a bargaining unit. Typically, a bargaining unit is based on, do you do the same work? Do you work in the same location, like geographically? And is your employer the same? There are obviously exceptions when you talk about sectoral bargaining, which is something that we've been looking at for staff that isn't in Springfield, but that's generally how you do bargaining units. So we have two different employers, right? One group is employed by the Speaker of the House in his capacity as Majority Leader, and then another group is employed by the Minority Leader for the House of Representatives. To draw us in together is frankly bizarre. If I were Leader McCombie and this bill were law, I would just hire 50 more people to balloon the amount of like House GOP staff that fills these roles, and then essentially just do whatever I want with the bargaining unit. They could, in effect, force a strike through a vote with just Republican staff votes. Like this bill and the language in it was not very well thought out. When we saw the bill, we told them about our issues. When they gave us the amendment, we asked for them to send it back to committee. They did not do so. We would have addressed those issues, and we did give them a list of our concerns and suggested edits before the bill passed. But I mean, yeah, functionally, it's not good legislation, unfortunately.
To get back to the conversation that happened towards the end of this session, there was both a letter that you guys had sent regarding the failure to recognize the union at this point, and then there was the lawsuit itself. The letter really contained some strong language about the way that the Speaker has been treating this whole situation, and I wonder from that perspective, do you feel like this is, obviously, in that letter, it was you claimed it was intentional, there was just completely neglecting it, and refusing to acknowledge it, and I wonder when you're on the job itself, is there anything that's apparent in that, or is it just the inaction that is proving that to you?
Well, first, I want to thank the team that actually put that letter together. That's not my writing style, not my writing, and they did a fantastic job on it. But as far as what it looked like and what prompted us to be as direct as this letter was, there really hadn't been a whole lot of change in how things had been going since the very get-go. The difference is, before that letter dropped, they made it clear in our last meeting back in, I believe it was in March, that they had no intention of talking with us in good faith. They had no intention in negotiating with us as a union, and they made that very clear in the two most recent meetings that we had. They started the meeting off by saying this is not collective bargaining, which is like a great way of kind of making sure that you don't accidentally do something that you've been trying to put off, because if you say if it could be, I guess, interpreted that they had started collective bargaining, that might play very poorly in the courts, right? As far as what it's been like, we've seen marginal improvements in conditions, but as far as what management's strategy has been basically to wait us out and bleed us dry. It's just basically, oh well, wait for this. Oh, do this. We can't do anything. I passed the bill. What else do you want me to do? And it's just, it's unfortunately, there's a lack of good faith engagement, is what we're seeing.
Well, Brady Burden, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We'll be right back.